When Cameron Brink and Haley Jones are both on, we see exactly what we need from Stanford, a team that we know can make it to the Final Four and a team that could be a national champion in 2023. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Slasher U. I'm your host, Christian Rao, here with my co-host, Steve Feck. We're going to break down the latest win from Stanford, 71-66 over 17th ranked UCLA. Stanford now sits as the third best ranked team in the country. We've kind of been on and off about Stanford all year, Steve. We obviously saw their overtime loss against South Carolina. We saw Haley Jones struggle in that game. She seemed like she needed some time to really get her season going, if you will. Cameron Brink's done some fantastic stuff in, I guess, the absence of Haley Jones while she was getting it together. Now we're seeing both of them fire on all cylinders at the perfect time as we get ready for March. And that's just the two of the players that I'm talking about. Obviously, there's a lot more to really get into with this team, but you got to really look at Jones and Brink initially. This team is on the point right now. They are ready to go for March. They're primed in. Now they're about to go through a gauntlet in the Pac-12, which we'll talk about here in just a moment. But let's talk about this game. 71-66. It ends, and it really was a lot closer than that. It ends with a crazy block to seal the deal from Brink at the end of the game. When Haley Jones, I'm going to say it again, when Haley Jones and Cameron Brink are both on, it's really hard to bet against this team.
It is. And then you talk about Cameron Brink. Not only did she have some really big blocks at critical times. I mean, the one block, Steph Curry, the entire arena, it went nuts over it. Because, it really was. It was with authority that
super
that
clutch.
Block.
Super
clutch.
It
really is. But you remember that, she had 25 points. She had 15 from the line. So, so again, she was perfect from the line. I want to say she was 15 for 15, if I'm not mistaken, from the line. So that's showing you that they, if you're going to try to shut her down by fouling her, that's not going to work. If you're going to try to post her out, down deep, she can step out just enough to score. But she also has, the alternative scorers, and I hate to call Haley an alternative scorer, but Cameron Brink really has become, the marquee player, I think, for them over the course of the season here. Stanford is hitting its stride when it needs to. Like you talk about those two games they have coming up against Colorado, and I can't wait for the Utah game. That was a really big thing. And I think they stood up. UCLA went on a 25-11 run in the third quarter. They were actually leading going into the fourth. But between the foul trouble UCLA had and just Stanford really shutting down things defensively, Stanford showed why so many voters kept them at the number 2 spot and even now at the number 3 spot, when certainly I was someone that was calling for other teams to be up higher in the rankings over Stanford based on the way they were playing earlier in conference play. But now I think they've hit their stride.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. Talking about that Utah, let's do a little bit of a Cameron Brink appreciation minute here. Let's talk about that last time they played Utah. Stanford won 74-62. If you remember, that was the game that Brink just went absolutely nuts. She had 25 points, 14 rebounds, and 4 blocks, right? And speaking of free throws, yes, she was 15 for 15 in this game. She has only missed 1 free throw in the month of February so far. And She was 15 for 15 in this game, 4 for 4 last game. And then 2 games ago against Arizona State, she was 5 for 6. But other than that, she has not missed a free throw. If you take away that one that she missed against Arizona State, she hasn't missed one since January 27th against Oregon State. She is on from the line. And if you keep fouling her, that's just easy money. That is the definition of the charity strike for Stanford. Cameron Brink is fantastic. Again, junior, 6'4". She plays like she's 6'8". She does some fantastic things on the court there. And when her and Jones are both on, this team is absolutely unstoppable. Let's talk about Haley Jones. What she did in this one, what she facilitated, the things she did was just really incredible. I really liked watching Haley Jones. I was very skeptical at the beginning of this season. And Haley Jones, in my opinion, going into this year was a top 3 draft pick going into the WNBA. And then I watched her struggle this season and a lot of question marks popped up in my head. Is that the case? In this game against UCLA, all those went away. In my opinion, all of them went away. The way she facilitated the ball, the way she shot, the way she was not afraid to make shots contested in the paint. She did exactly what you expect out of somebody who's going to be a top 5 draft pick in the WNBA draft after this season. And all of those things, all those skepticism that I had at the beginning of the year are now gone. And I can't wait to see what happens with this gauntlet of a run that they have to go through before the tournaments even start in the Pac-12. We talked about the game against Utah. That one's on the 25th. But before that, they got to play the 21st ranked Colorado Buffaloes. And they've been very good this year as well. They've shocked a lot of people. And that's why they're sitting in this ranking. The Pac-12 on the women's side is very deep this year. And I don't know if we were ready to say this. I don't know if we were ready to talk about this young Utah team being the eighth ranked team in the country. I don't know if we were ready to do that so fast. Colorado sitting in 21st, as we mentioned. Arizona sitting 14th. UCLA sitting 17th with that just loss. And obviously USC, I think, is just outside the top 25. Stanford has earned that ranking as the number 3 seed. And I'm glad that we have finally came to terms with that after almost the entire season. But when we see both of those players and the rest of the Stanford team firing in all cylinders, I mentioned again, it's hard to bet against them. And if we have a top-notch Haley Jones and a top-notch Cameron Brink, 2 players that we didn't have completely ready to go against that South Carolina team at the beginning of the year, it makes you wonder if round 2 looks a little different when the final score is said and done, because that game was very close. We know it went to overtime, and that was when we had a struggling Haley Jones, a super struggling Haley Jones, Steve. So makes you wonder what would happen if those 2 face off again, maybe sometime in the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, right. You always talk about dream matchups, and look at where these teams are playing. If they're not number 1 seeds, I'm assuming Stanford's going to be a 1 seed.
Yeah, it's going to be if we're going to see that matchup, it's going to be either in the Natty or the Final Four, depending on what side of the brackets they on. I guarantee that Stanford and South Carolina will be both number 1 seeds come tournament time.
Yeah, and then of course there's always the conspiracy theory as well. Okay, let's say they really want to see South Carolina, UConn again. So, okay, we'll put them to make sure that they're going to play, in the 16, or the Elite 8. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of that in that room that never really comes out, where they really want to have some marquee television deals. I want to go back to Haley Jones just real quick before we move ahead.
Mm-hmm.
I think Haley Jones has improved her draft stock through her struggles, because I think she realized that for whatever reason she was off her rhythm, or things weren't falling for her. But you kept saying she's a facilitator. She made sure that Cameron Brink got the shots. She made sure that these younger players that have come in to the program, that they got their moments to shine in those games where she didn't have her A game. Excellent. I mean, Haley Jones's B game is still better than most players in the country, but she is smart enough and has enough court awareness that, okay, you know what? I don't have it tonight, but I'm going to make sure my teammates get the best opportunities. And I think that's where her draft stock actually might have gone up, even with the publicized struggles in some big games, because she really has been more of a floor leader than she's been the star. She's let Cameron Brink sort of have the spotlight be shown on her more often than on herself, but it's been very seamless, and it's not like she totally disappears. She just finds different ways to win games.
Almost like another topic we talked about when we were talking on the men's side about Jalen Wilson of the Kansas Jayhawks. When he's on, he is the top player on that squad. But when he's off, other players step up, but he still contributes. And then we can say the same thing about Haley Jones. She facilitates, she does fantastic things. That's a really good way to look at it. I can't say that I was looking at it that way, because I think I was just so overwhelmed with the worry of, I guess, the skepticism of her play. But if I look back now, I think I would probably agree with you. So that's a really good way to look at that. Stanford, they finish off their season against Colorado and Utah. If they finish off the season the way with 2 wins, then they'll finish the year 28-3. They'll also finish the year, which is very interesting, 16-2 in the conference, which is absolutely incredible. And again, we'll set them up for the top seed in the tournament, for the conference tournament, and a top seed in March Madness. I think Stanford can do that. I think we're going to see that. However, both those games coming up are going to be fantastic. We're going to see Stanford versus Colorado Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern time, and then Saturday the 25th, 2 p.m. Eastern time for that Stanford-Utah game. You know we'll have you covered here at Slasher U, especially when these top teams are facing off. We want to make sure you're covered here because we know how important it is to talk about those top teams, especially when we're so close to March Madness. This is going to be one of the most craziest tournaments of all of the history of women's basketball this year. The talent level is absolutely insane. I know we're talking about a team that we hear about a lot over the past years of Stanford, but these other teams that we're talking about, Colorado, Utah, you don't hear them in the mix, and they deserve to be in this conversation as well. Get ready, buckle in, folks, because this is going to be one hell of the next few months of college basketball. Let us know your thoughts. Go ahead, bring it in, Steve.
I was going to say, we didn't really talk about what this game meant for UCLA and its ultimate tournament seedings. I think we've talked all year about UCLA and about, boy, they're going to be really good next year, and they're going to be unbelievable.
I got so excited about Haley Jones and Cameron Brink, we completely forgot to talk about UCLA.
It just dawned on me because then we're talking about Colorado, and again, I'm really high on Utah. I mean, yes, I mean, Stanford took them to school last time, but I mean, I really think Utah has a really good, inside player, and it's got a ton of. I mean, it's a very young team, so Utah's very exciting. But UCLA had a terrific recruiting class, and they haven't played bad, but they've been very up and down. It seems like I watched them one game, and I'm like, wow, this team's going to work their way into the top 10 by the end of the year. Then I watch them another time, and I'm like, is everybody hurt? Is this the JV game? I don't understand what's going on. So how do you feel they come out of this game with Stanford? I mean, do you think they're a little deflated? They're a little demoralized?
Yeah, that's a tough one to think about. They're sitting at 21-7 now, and then they are now fifth in the conference at 10-6. I think that really hurts because they had an opportunity to sit in third if they would have got that win. However, if you look at their next one, they got Washington State, which is a tough one. Don't get me wrong. Washington State is another tough game. They've been iffy in conference. They're 8-8, and then they finish their season against UW, who has struggled this year. So I think that they can't allow themselves to take this as a tough win. Now, will they do that? That's an interesting point. But if you look at all the other games that they played lately, they've been fantastic. Their other loss was an overtime loss at the beginning of the month against Arizona. But if you remember this game, now obviously it says they lost by 5, but this wasn't a 5-point loss. This game was very close until 0.04 seconds left on the clock, right? Until we saw that huge block by Cameron Brink. So I don't think if I'm UCLA or if I'm these UCLA coaches, I'm doing whatever adjustments I have to talk about real quick, and then I'm moving on right away. Or I might not even bring up adjustments. I might just move along right away because they got 2 other games to worry about. Those are way more important than the Stanford loss because even though they didn't win this game, they didn't get blown out. So I am a true believer in quality losses, especially when you get to the committee as well. I do think quality losses come into play, and you can say that this was a quality loss because UCLA battled with Stanford until the very end. You know who also did that? South Carolina, the number 1 team in the nation, who won in overtime against this Stanford team. So if I'm UCLA, I'm keeping my heads high and looking forward to seeing Washington State on Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern time, and then finishing against UW, because that's more important because you have an opportunity to maybe get up to 4th place before the conference tournament and then get ready to solidify yourself in March Madness, Steve.
Yeah, and it's something that especially when you're in a deep conference, right? They're 5th. You think about it, they're 5th in the Pac-12. Mm-hmm. Almost all but one of their losses has come in conference play. So I mean, again, now if I was the coaching staff, I would just play just the video from the 3rd quarter and say, "This is UCLA basketball at its finest." Okay. First half was kind of tough. They hung really, really tough in the 4th quarter, but just play that 3rd quarter. You went on a 25-11 run, against the number 3 team in the country. you had them shaken. You had them worried. Okay, we got foul trouble. A lot of our stars fouled out by midway through the fourth quarter. Forget that. Okay, this is what you need to do. You need to try to replicate that game after game now, and conference play, and then game after game as you advance in the Pac-12 tournament.
Very good point. And of course, Charisma Osborne, another probably first round pick in WNBA draft. Yeah. She struggled in this one too, and just lost to Stanford by just a few points. She was 3 for 15 from the field. So only 11 points. If she gets it together in the next few games, and then maybe if there's another rematch down the line or another top seed, and Osborne's on, watch out for UCLA. So yeah, again, I'm not going to say take too much stock in this loss for UCLA, but circle it back, round circle, round turn here, if you will. If Brink and Jones are on, there's not a single team in the Pac-12 that's going to keep up with Stanford.
Yeah, I agree.
Let us know your thoughts in the comment description below. What do you think about this Pac-12's Women's Conference? Stanford, UCLA, Colorado, Utah, so many names. This conference is so deep. So let us know all your thoughts below. What do you think about Haley Jones and Cameron Brink now that these two players are firing in all cylinders? Do you think this is a team that could make it to the Final Four or even farther? Do you see them as a true national championship contender? Let us know all your thoughts in the comment description below. Hit like and subscribe while you're there. And thanks for watching /review.